and welcome back to the Sew Homey Podcast. My name is Abby and I'm the maker and the designer behind Sew Homey, and I like to release these podcasts whenever I have projects that I have completed or that I've started, and if I have yarn. And this episode features all three of those things. I'll talk about finished objects first, one of which I'm wearing this adorable tank top, which I'll get into in just a little bit, and then I have two pairs of socks that I like to show you that I have finished as well. I have one work in progress, which is right next to me, and I'm having a lot of fun with this one. And then I recently traveled to Barcelona, and it would not have been a successful trip had I not brought back yarn with me. So I like to share some of the yarn that I brought back. But yeah, that's kind of what you can expect from this episode. So I hope that you stay tuned, and I invite you to work on a project while we just chat about knitting and crochet. So yeah, make yourself cozy and we'll get started with the finished objects. So the first one that I have for you guys is this one. It is called the Chasing Summer Light. I don't know if it's actually called tank, but it is a tank top. And this is a design by Janine Miska, and this is a crochet pattern. It's free on her website, and I printed it off so I could follow it. And as you can see, it was well worn. I actually started this one before I went to Barcelona. My goal was to have it finished so that I could wear it while I was there, but I somehow did not get it finished by that time. So rather than having it finished, I worked on it in the airplane. And honestly, this is the perfect project for that because it's so small. It does not require just a ton of yarn, so it's perfect to travel with if you're looking for something small other than socks, because that's always my go-to. But this tank top was perfect. So I'll go ahead and show you. You can kind of see it, but let me get situated. So this is the tank top in all its glory. I really like the way that it's shaped, how it has this nice V. You can make it as deep or as shallow as you want, because I'll talk about the construction in a minute, I guess, but you seam it right here down the middle. So you can actually close it up more if you don't want as much showing, or if you don't want that V as long. So this is what the front side looks like, and these are the straps. I think it looks very nice and clean, and then I'll try to turn around a little bit so you can see the back side. But this is what the back looks like, just very simple. And I'm going to dress myself again. It's a little chilly in here. It's now fall, so this project was honestly finished at the wrong time. I'm really happy that I did, but I'm not going to get much use of it out of this season, so I'll have to wait till spring or summer to wear it, unless we get some nice fall days soon. But it's been very cold lately, so that's why I have it paired with a flannel, because it's a little cold inside. I already mentioned that this was a fun pattern, but I really did like it. It's written very well, very clear instructions. She has some good diagrams in there so that you can visualize what it is she's talking about. And she also has pictures, if I recall. She had pictures so that you could see like where to add the straps and what the stitches should look like once you get there. I did not use the yarn that she had listed in her pattern. I substituted it with a yarn that I found at Hobby Lobby. The yarn is called, or is by Yarn Bee. It's called Spiness, and I chose the colorway Ivory, and it's a beautiful color. It's slightly shiny because it's made out of viscose and polyester, so that's kind of what gives it that sheen, but it's super, super soft, and it was very easy to work with. It didn't split. I've worked with some polyester viscose yarns, and a lot of times the yarn will just split, and it's hard to grab the whole strand of yarn, because sometimes you'll only get like a few strands, like half of them, whenever you're going fast anyway. But I did like this one because it didn't really split a lot. It pretty much just stayed together. So I liked this yarn, and I only used one skein of yarn plus a little bit of this one. That's why it's kind of a mess, but I didn't use a lot of this yarn, or a lot of this skein, so It was almost a one skein project. What I would do differently though, if I were to make this pattern again, is I would check my gauge for one. I guess there's a few things. I didn't check my gauge, so it actually ended up being like, you can see how short it is, but it ended up being way short because this is like my belly button right here. So this tank top did end up being a lot shorter than I had anticipated, but that's also my own fault because I opted to not measure for gauge. I literally just substituted the yarn, which is obviously a different weight. So I did get a different gauge than what was in the pattern, obviously because I did not get the finished measurements that the pattern stated, and that's totally my own fault. I just decided that I didn't want to add any extra effort into it, so I just followed it as it was written. But don't get me wrong, I still like it, and it goes with certain things. I just need high-waisted, very high-waisted skirts or pants. And yeah, so I do like this one a lot, and I'm just gonna keep saying that. This pattern is basically 2 different panels. So you start with the front 2 panels, you make them identical, and you get it, like you get this shaping because you use increases at the top. So basically you crochet like the length of the top to the center of your nipple, basically. That's kind of where it ends up. At least like the cup shaping, like that's kind of how it works out. So you just make a long chain, and then you start going back and forth like a rainbow, I guess. And you just keep adding stitches, and at the very top, like whenever you get to the top, which is like, I'm gonna keep pointing at my nipple, but whenever you get to this point, then you increase on your way back down, and then whenever you come back up, you increase, and then you go back down, and then you continue this pattern until the panel is wide enough to, I mean, basically what the pattern says is like the width. That's what you want to get to. And then it should fit, whenever you're done, it should fit all the way around your boob. And then you make an identical one, and then you can seam them together, which is how you get the front piece. And then you start adding the back panel on one of the sides, and then once you get the back panel done, you seam it to the opposite side. And then you add the straps at the very end. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really liked it. Definitely check out this pattern if you're looking for a summer tank top. It was super easy, and I think that it would look good on a lot of different body types. That is the first finished object that I'm so happy to have. And that brings us to the next one. And it's a pair of socks. If you've been around my channel for any length of time, you'll know that I like to knit socks. They're just the perfect project to take with you. They're very portable because they're so small, and I just really like that it works out very quickly. So I do like the feeling that I get whenever I complete a project in no time. So this project was actually featured in my previous podcast episode. So if you've seen that one, then you will have already seen these socks, but I'm gonna call them the Sidewalk Chalk Socks because the yarn that I used is a Patons Croy sock yarn, and the colorway is called Sidewalk Chalk, I believe. But this is what the sock looks like finished. And I say finished, I do still have the ends to weave in on these, but that's all it's lacking. And here's the other one. So I've got 2 of them, but I did do the heels differently. I actually have to fix this one, so it's still finished, promise. It's still finished, but I ended up, I was trying out something, and I added too many rows whenever I started to join for the heel. So let me back up just a little bit maybe. This sock pattern is, I wasn't following any sock design or anything. I was just, I just wanted like a mindless knit, and so I just cast it on. I think I did 60 stitches. 64 stitches. I can't remember. Maybe 64 stitches is what I did, I think. And then I just started with the cuff. And then whenever I was like, I think it's long enough, I just started knitting in a tube. So that's why it looks like this. So I just knitted all the way to the tube. And then I was like, yeah, that should definitely give me enough length for my foot to fit in there. And so I stopped and I added a new yarn, added the toe. And so then I just had the tube with the toe at the bottom. So then I did an afterthought heel where you take out stitches so that it's open. You have a giant hole, but you have all the live stitches held on your needles, and then you join in the round and you start knitting in a circle, and then you do decreases so that you get that heel shaping. But whenever I did the second sock, I added too many rows at the very beginning, and then like before I started my decreases. So it sticks out. There's like quite a chunk of the heel that sticks out that would be super uncomfortable in my sneakers or my shoes. So this one worked out nicely, but you can see that this one is quite a bit, not quite a bit, but you can see that there's a difference, and this one was longer. This one failed, so I need to rip out a little bit and then redo it and then weave in the ends, but they are finished, and I just love this colorway, honestly. That's really what I like about these socks. I just love those stripes. And you would be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't be, because maybe you get the same comments, but I was working on these at my grandparents' house actually, and they were like so amazed that the yarn just had all of these stripes. They were like, how do you do that? How do you make it so like perfect? And you know, the way that the stripes are, how does that work? And it's just funny to me because like obviously they're not into the knitting world and they don't know as much about the yarn, you know. So I was trying to explain to them that they have what's called self-striping yarn, and it just means that, you know, there's colors for a certain length and before it changes to another one, but whenever you knit it up, you know, you end up getting these stripes. So I was trying to explain that to them, and it was really funny. I think they understood. My grandpa was still like, that's magic. I don't know how you do that. So it was really funny. But anyway, I'm really loving the colorway of these socks. That's why I like them so much. I think that it looks better whenever you have the contrasting color for the heel, especially whenever you do like the afterthought method, like for the heel, because the striping just, the way that it works out, since it's usually like you're decreasing, so it's shorter, the stripes just look different, and I don't know, I just think that it looks better with a contrasting color. So that was another reason. But yeah, I still haven't quite nailed down how to get one full skein of yarn in one pair of socks with contrasting colors, but I'm doing my best. I'm trying to figure out that just perfect ratio for at least for my gauge and for how I knit socks. And I keep sorry, I keep just tossing them around. I'm going to put these down. So that was the second finished object. That brings us to the third finished object for this video, and I'm really impressed by these, but they still need a lot of work. I tried a new technique for these, but let me go ahead and show you this pair of socks. I wanted to, again, so I tried to make socks with one skein of yarn because a lot of times, or at least back whenever I was purchasing a lot of yarn, I would find a yarn that I really liked and I'd buy one of them. And obviously you can't make a lot of things with only one skein of yarn, and socks generally you need two. I mean, I guess it depends on the yarn weight, and you know, if it's a 50 gram versus a 100 gram skein of yarn, then you know, obviously that's kind of different. But this yarn was a 50 grams ball, and it's by Premier, and I bought it at Hobby Lobby, but it's called Cotton Collage, and it's 46% cotton, 33% superwash merino, and then 12% polyamide, and then a 9% something else. And I remember seeing this yarn for the first time, and I was really intrigued by it because I haven't made socks with cotton in them before. I've only ever used wool and nylon mix. So I was curious how this yarn would work up, and it felt soft, and yeah, so, but whenever I purchased it, I only bought one. So I was like, I know I can get one pair of socks, or I was hoping I could get one pair of socks out of it, and I did get that with some, like quite a bit actually left over, but I made them into like no-show socks because I wanted less of a cuff, because I knew that obviously I wouldn't have enough for like a full leg in this sock yarn. And anyway, this is how it turned out. I really love the colorway. It looks really nice, and I did try a new technique. I purchased this book, Simple Socks. I bought secondhand, and I really am glad that I'm reading it, or that I read it now, because I remember trying to figure out what this book even meant on like how to like cast on. Like they have these nice visuals, but I hadn't ever knit socks before, so this was definitely not the book to teach me how to knit socks. But now that I've knit more socks and I know the construction of them, and I have tried out different techniques, this book makes so much more sense, and I was able to decipher the words and the pictures. So I was able to successfully knit these socks, and it uses short rows, but it uses short rows in a way that I have never seen before. I actually thought that the book was incorrect because I couldn't find a video on how to do short rows this way. So I was kind of confused, and I was looking for a visual, and Andrea Mowry actually had one tutorial. I finally found something that she had, and she made it make more sense on how this technique works. And then I had also found a blog post, I think it was by Interweave, one of their blog posts that they had, and it put in words how this technique works, but it was written slightly differently where it clicked a little bit more. So I reread this, and after that video tutorial by Andrea Mallory, I was able to figure it out, and it's really cool. I really like it, but what I have to figure out is how to not get holes on the sides. Like these holes aren't big, but I think on this one, I don't know what I did. Yeah, it's this one. I don't know 100% what I did, but I have like, I don't even know if you can see that, but there's quite a few holes in the side of the sock, just where I was doing the short row technique. And yeah, I'm not 100% sure why. I think the toe showed up a little bit more. I don't know. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm just inspecting my socks now. This pattern uses short rows to shape the heel. So I started with the cuff of this one, and then I put the stitches on the front of the sock on hold, and then I used short rows to create the heel. So it's really cool because it adds fabric where you need it, but it ends up shaping it. So you start here, and then somehow it's like magic, but the short rows end up like turning that heel so that then you're like on this side, and it makes kind of like a cup for your heel to fit in. And then you just start knitting back in the round until you end up at the toe. And this pattern is unique because I've never seen it ever before, but this the author of this book likes to use short rows for both the heel and the toe. So I'm going to count this as a finished object because I purposely did not finish this so that I could show you what I meant by this technique. But this is the top of the sock. So I did the cuff, and then this is where the short row heel was added, and then here's the foot. Now we're at the toe of the sock. So I started, I've got hair, sorry. Maybe I can show this side. Okay, So whenever you get to the bottom of the foot where you want to start adding your toe, this is where my stitches have been on hold, and I've been knitting on the back part of the sock, which is the toe. So if I flip it over, you can still see where the cable is, and that's where the stitches are on hold. So this is where I started that technique of the short rows. So I started knitting, and then it's almost, I don't know, you just start doing short rows. It's almost like you're adding stitches, but you're actually not, because whenever you get back to it, you're decreasing to the amount of stitches that you had before. Again, I don't know how to describe it. I'm not the best at words sometimes, so just look it up. But it's so cool because it starts turning in on itself. So I started knitting this way, right? And then whenever I get here, it starts turning and it makes a little cup. And this is where the toe is. So now all I have to do is I join these two open parts. I just join these two together with the Kitchener stitch, and I have a sock, which is awesome because on this one, the sock, or like the toe is made by just a lot of decreases. So you're just decreasing along the sides until it's the width of your toes, or a little bit shorter than your toes. But that's how this one was created. But you're just continuously knitting in the round until you end up here, and then you just have this part open, and that's where you knit them together, or you sew them together. But this one, it actually, the technique creates that toe